So folks, welcome to our event to raise a glass to Greek American heritage. It's so great to see so many of you that came from so far away, from so many different communities. And it's very pleasurable to see all of you talking. And we're finding our own histories are connected, and that's part of the process. There were two flyers in this event, two parts of the campaign. This particular one rang out to a lot of people. This flyer that says, "Our heritage needs a home." It's really a double entendre. We're saying that we need a place to put our artifacts, a place to celebrate our heritage, but that heritage as well should be celebrated within our own home, in our own hearts, with our own families. We have a great tradition of storytelling. I had given a presentation to the Alpha Omega Council in January of this year, on my birthday, and shared with them this missing history and this critical situation that we find ourselves in, that a lot of our artifacts are at risk. And a lot of people are getting older, and they have things, and they have stories, and they have materials, and they need a place where that's collected. We need to start teaching from this material. I showed the Alpha Omega Council some of their history and took from newspaper clippings, and then thanked them for sponsoring the Hellenic Chronicle Project. I think, Nancy, are you still here? Yeah. Thank you, Nancy. Nancy was my partner in crime in this. We got so much done. It's such a great project. 50 years that her father published the Hellenic Chronicle. And this is such a great source of information for us in this lost history. The Greek press in America goes back over 100 years. It actually began in 1892 in Boston with the first Greek American newspaper. Here in New Hampshire, there was one from 1910. Here's one from 1913 from New York that's apparently not in any libraries in the country, so I've been told. And it's a royalist newspaper, and so it was at the time of the Balkan Wars. And it's sending back photojournalism and stories that we had not seen. Here's another magazine printed in New York with short stories. This one, another one, over 100 years old, not in any library, as we understand, in the country, not cataloged in any library, came from this community, from Jim Meletios, who is in the back there, and he had received it from Bessie Sakopoulos. Bound volumes of 1 year of this newspaper published in New York that wasn't in any library, over 100 years old, published by the Divri Company. Now, we knew Divri because they had all of these books. You probably have some of these in your home. And they published church books, they published history books, early education books, children's books, poetry, just about everything. Even there was one about if you're a restaurant person, how to make it in the restaurant field. Yeah, all of these things. Here is a full-page ad in the newspaper in 1930 showing all of these books. What happened? So we use the newspapers as one of the sources to document other material. This is something that came through in a collection, a tape that said Kennedy Eulogy, Theological School Choir. Who is this? You know, and it was Elaine Kevgas, and she's here in the room. Elaine, hello. Elaine had donated this magazine, this newspaper out of Boston, the Kyria Katekanea, published for 10 years in Greek. And there was the answer, because in this newspaper I was able to see who was giving that service when Kennedy died. It was a nation in mourning. And now this whole issue, most of this issue was dedicated, and it was released right at the time of Kennedy's death. This is very, very significant, right? Because in another generation, you'll say to a young person, John F. Kennedy, and they'll say, who?
You're saying it already.
Does he play for the Red Sox? Okay, so here's a photo. Again, Nancy had donated this right at the time that the HEPA was looking to write their history. She had a photograph from 1958 from the HEPA convention. Here's another one of a banquet for Archbishop Iakovos. And this is very neat because you can look at it and find old priests and everything. It's very, very cool. These photographs are at risk. They are deteriorating, they're crumbling. Sometimes I receive research collections. This is at the Hoi, which is a village in Greece, and this Hoi Association doesn't exist anymore. But it covered several areas of Greece, one particular area, but several areas here. And as a research collection, these people went through and tried to figure out who was in the photo. And there's a number of these things. So sometimes you receive material that's been processed a little bit, it's been looked at, it's been studied. Research collections. It's my pleasure to welcome guests into the archive, which is right now in my home. And I had the pleasure of Simeon Tegros, who is our Consul General of Greece in Boston, who was to be here today, and he had another last minute, he had another conflict. But he came to my home, spent a couple of hours, and looking at this material. And I said, this part of these artifacts aren't being collected systematically in the library. They're not with any priority. A lot of libraries have this kind of material, but it's not accessible. And so he said, well, what do you think we need? I think we need a center. We need a center of Greek American heritage, a study center. And I was very frank. And sometimes, the phone rings, and I just love it when my phone rings. Sometimes people have very specific requests. This request came from the Archdiocese in New York, and they asked if I had the November 1912 issue of the Atlantis newspaper. You know something? I had it. And I scanned it. I just happened to. I'm interested in church history. It's just a thing, So I had taken the photograph. Here is actually something different. This is an ephemera. This is something that normally people would throw out. It's a pamphlet from the first seminary before Holy Cross, before Pomfret. It was St. Athanasios. The patriarch to the left is Meletios, by the way, Meletios Metaxakis, who came here and started the Church in America. So it's interesting that in the upper right-hand corner, you can see the program, the instructors, they actually had an instructor of hygiene. They were teaching people, here's the soap, and here's how you wash your hands. So I'm full course on that, Times have changed. And sometimes people call with very general questions, and they ask, what do you have on Greek Independence Day parades, Greek parades in America? What can you tell me? This is a scholar from Greece. And I said, well, what are you looking for? A film, or some of you might recognize. And we did a search, and it said that the first Greek Independence Day parade was started in 1994. And I said, wait a minute, that's not true. And this is a still from a film from 1966, some of you remember. When here in Manchester, New Hampshire, in March of 1966, for Independence Day, they marched all the way up to here for the new church. And here's something from the 40s that's actually appeared. It was put in the Hellenic Voice newspaper in 2010, but it's from 1943. This is our history. This is the pride, the courage it takes for those people, how proud they felt when they came back. So I looked at the source, and there it was, the National Herald had reported, and this is how AI works. So if someone puts out a news story, they're a credible source, they're going to say, okay, this has got to be the story. And these stories overwrite our history. And these stories go into dissertations, they go into books, they go into the classrooms, they go into people standing up in podiums. Not talking about the parade from 1903 in Boston, and this is newspaper clippings. Our history goes way back. And there was so much happening in this period, but we've buried it. So I'm often back to this quote, and I think about us as a people, where yes, we knew we were going to assimilate. We wanted to do well here. We wanted to be part of the American fabric, but not lose our culture. And this is what I'm finding now. It's sort of like, my dentist will say it's like your teeth. But it's when you don't have good roots and things are shaky. A tree will blow over. So I take this message out, and we amplified it a little bit. I want to thank all of you for coming tonight. It means a lot to me. I have so many thank yous to give. And the first big thank you is to this community that received me back on a proposal for a library, Phil Liakos, who called me here to speak first, give a history talk. And right away they said, oh, we loved it. Can we have you back? And I said, well, why don't we start a library project? And Phil carried the proposal through to the board, and it was voted, as he mentioned. Nancy's family kickstarted it. And now I hope for the last hour we can go over and you can see this wonderful space and the programs behind it. Because now we're being called by other parishes across the Archdiocese. We're being asked to model some of our programs. And so when you go, we have a sign-up book. You know, it's a lending library, and all the volunteers are here. And they'll be glad to tell you about the programs. Vanjie Diotis, who catalogs the books, has an online catalog of over 1,400 books. Helen Minkle, sitting over there. Helen Minkle, her husband David, who films all of our events. Helen started a program of story time in the library to tell story to kids. And this is one of the most popular programs now. We have the young adults that are telling stories to the children. I have to, of course, thank the fundraising team, because when we started this, it was obvious that I didn't have a lot of skill at fundraising. I'm one of those people that's much better at giving. I think a lot of you are the same way. We don't know how to say, would you support this? And there were other people that were experts in this. And they brought in some excellent sponsors. Some of the people that are in this room. And I don't want to name anyone, but I think we will. Charles and Stella Nahatis are sitting right here at the table. Charles and Stella have been supporting my work and advising me for quite a while. And Stella was part of the fundraising team. We had Pan right there, and he's been supporting my work for many, many years, and chose to step up here. The baskets were put together, the whole basket, themes and strategy and planned by Maria Dongas in the back. And I have to thank Maria, because she had those baskets, the sponsorships filled out before we could blink an eye. And then Vanjie and I think who else had helped in some of the other baskets, of course, baskets donated by Stella and takes them out of Greece. The big thanks too goes to Tina Papadopoulos, who came on in the middle of another campaign. Tina had come and said, okay, well, I've got a daughter's campaign I'm finishing, but I said, Tina, we really can't, this is not going to work without you. So Tina has been advising us on so many levels, and me personally, throughout this whole process. And so we thank Tina, and also in the Facebook and social media world, she kept beating the drum, and the team did as well. So I want to thank, I know I haven't finished thanking everyone, but we're happy you're all here. For the rest of the evening, as we go into our wine experience now, at 7 o'clock we would like to pull the raffle. So now that we can just raise our glass to Greek American heritage, we hope that the next step is, and we're going to really tap the community to see, the leaders of the community, can we have a separate center to hold our artifacts, to celebrate our heritage? Can we have that here in the Boston area? I hope so. So, thank you again. Have a good evening.